It was on a rainy evening that I first saw her, the girl who stole my breath away. Not because of beauty, but because she looked exactly like my daughter, Elena. My Elena, who had died 23 years ago, whose laughter still echoed in the corridors of my heart. The same tilted smile, the same soft brown eyes, even the tiny freckle above the left eyebrow. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating again. Age plays cruel tricks on the mind. But no, this young woman was real. She stood before me, holding my grandson Liam's hand and introducing herself as Clara, his wife. My knees went weak. I gripped the armrest of my chair, staring, blinking, waiting for reality to make sense. My grandson had married a ghost. "Grandma," Liam said with that easy grin of his, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "This is Clara. We got married last month in Venice." Venice. The same place my daughter Elena had always dreamed of visiting. She used to cut out travel pictures and paste them in a scrapbook she called Someday. I managed to smile, but my heart raced like a trapped bird. "Welcome, Clara," I whispered. My voice trembled. Her gaze locked onto mine for a fraction longer than politeness required, and there was something there, recognition, maybe fear. That night I couldn't sleep. The rain drummed against the windows, and every drop seemed to whisper my daughter's name. Elena had been gone for decades, buried under a marble headstone with roses carved along the edge. Yet I could almost hear her voice in the darkness. "Don't trust her, Mother." Over the next few weeks, Clara became a permanent presence in the house. Liam and she had moved in temporarily while waiting for their new home to finish construction. She was polite, soft-spoken, and eerily familiar. She laughed the way Elena used to, tilting her head back slightly, one hand covering her mouth. The same gestures, the same perfume scent, gardenia and amber, the one Elena wore every Christmas. I began watching her, quietly. When she made tea, she added exactly 3 drops of lemon, the way Elena did. When she hummed, it was always the same song, Moon River. I hadn't heard that melody since Elena's funeral. One evening, I confronted her, gently. "Clara," I said while she was folding laundry in the living room, "where did you grow up?" She smiled. "Small town near Ohio. Nothing special." But her eyes shifted downward as she spoke. I asked again, "Have you ever been to Brookside Hospital?" Her hands froze. She looked at me with wide eyes for a moment, then forced a laugh. "No, why do you ask?" Brookside Hospital was where Elena had died. I never mentioned it in front of Liam. So how did Clara know what that name meant, unless it meant something to her too? Later that night, while they were asleep, I walked to their room. The door was slightly open. The moonlight fell across Clara's face, and for a split second I swore I saw Elena lying there, the same expression of peace I saw when she was in the coffin. I clutched my rosary and whispered, "What are you, my child?" The next morning, I found a small wooden box on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. Inside it was a silver locket, Elena's locket, the one I buried with her. My hands trembled so badly that I almost dropped it. When I opened it, inside was a tiny photo of Liam as a baby and another photo of Elena holding him. Exactly the same as before. Nothing had changed. I called out, "Clara, where did you get this?" She walked in from the garden, holding a basket of flowers, and froze when she saw what I was holding. Her face went white as snow. "Oh, I found it in the attic," she murmured. "But you can keep it." "The attic has been locked for years," I said. "No one goes there except me." Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Then she turned away and hurried back to the garden. From that day on, I kept a journal. Every strange thing, every word she said that sounded too familiar, I wrote down. I wasn't crazy. I needed proof. One afternoon, while Liam was at work, I heard music coming from the old piano room, a soft, haunting tune. When I peeked in, I saw Clara sitting there, playing with delicate hands that moved just like Elena's. And then she sang quietly, "Moon River, wider than a mile." I stepped inside. "How do you know that song?" I asked. She jumped, startled, and smiled weakly. "Oh, everyone knows this song." But her eyes were shiny with tears, and in that moment, something inside me broke. That night, I dreamed of Elena. She was standing by my bed, her face half in shadow, half in light. "Mom," she whispered, "you buried the truth with me. Now it's back." I woke up crying, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it echo in the silence. The next morning, Clara served breakfast as usual: pancakes, scrambled eggs, orange juice. She looked so normal, it almost made me doubt myself. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. Maybe grief had rotted a corner of my mind. But then I noticed something else. On her wrist was a faint scar shaped like a half moon, the same scar Elena had from when she fell off her bicycle at 12. I could barely breathe. I muttered an excuse and went to my room, tears blurring my vision. I took out Elena's old photographs and held them beside Clara's wedding photo. Identical. No differences. Even the way they tilted their heads to the right while smiling. That evening, I called my old friend Martha, who used to work as a nurse at Brookside Hospital. She sounded shocked when I told her the story. "Brookside's records were moved to state storage years ago," she said. "But I still have some copies of the death certificates from that year." "Can you check Elena's?" I asked. She paused. "Sure, give me a day or two." 2 days later, she called back. Her voice was shaking. "Your daughter's body was never officially claimed, Mary." "What?" I whispered. "The certificate says unverified remains. There was no photo attached to the file, just your signature identifying her by personal belongings." The room spun around me. I remembered it clearly. Back then, I was too broken to see her face. They said the accident had disfigured her beyond recognition. I never questioned it. I just signed the paper and buried what they gave me. Now, sitting there with the phone pressed to my ear, I realized I might have buried a lie. And the woman sleeping under my roof might be the ghost of that lie. I didn't tell anyone what Martha had said. I couldn't. Even repeating the words in my mind felt like dragging my heart across glass. Unverified remains. What did that even mean? Had they buried someone else under my daughter's name? Or had my daughter somehow survived and disappeared? Every time I looked at Clara after that, my stomach twisted with dread and curiosity. I wanted to touch her face, trace the lines of it, whisper, "Are you her?" But I couldn't. The fear of being wrong was worse than the fear of being right. That night, I went to the attic. It had been sealed for years, ever since Elena's death. I kept all her things there, untouched. When I turned the key and opened the door, a breath of cold air brushed past me, carrying the faint smell of old perfume and dust. The moonlight filtered through the cracked window, falling on the boxes labeled Elena. Her letters, her diaries, her clothes. I opened one of the boxes and found her old sketchbook. She used to draw faces, always women with soft eyes and sad smiles. On the last page, there was something new, something I didn't remember seeing before. It was a pencil sketch of a woman, older, with streaks of gray hair, wrinkled cheeks. My face. At the bottom, in Elena's handwriting, was a date. March 2002. The same month she supposedly died. My hands shook. I flipped the page over, and there was a line written faintly beneath it. If you ever see me again, don't ask how. Just forgive me. Forgive her? For what? The next morning, I watched Clara more carefully. Every small thing she did seemed like a message. The way she stirred her tea, the way she watched me when she thought I wasn't looking, the way her smile sometimes flickered, like she was remembering something painful. At lunch, I asked her casually, "Do you believe people can come back from the dead?" She looked startled, then gave a soft laugh. "You mean like ghosts?" "No," I said quietly. "Like people who disappeared, who everyone thought were gone." Her expression shifted, almost too quickly. "I think maybe some things don't stay buried." Her words sent chills crawling up my arms. That night, I sat in the living room reading one of Elena's old diaries. Most of it was from her teenage years, scribbles about boys, dreams, drawings. But near the end, I found something strange. The writing was hurried, panicked. "Mom doesn't know. The man keeps calling. He says if I tell anyone, he'll come after Liam." The entry was dated just 2 weeks before the accident. Who was the man? And why would he threaten a child? I looked at the clock. It was past midnight, but I couldn't rest. I needed to see what else she'd written. I flipped to the next page. "He said I can't go to the police. He said it's too late. I wish I could run away and start over somewhere new. Maybe change everything, even my name." My hand froze on that line. Change everything, even my name. Could Clara be Elena living under a new identity? But that was impossible. Elena would be nearly 50 now, not a young woman. Still, Clara's face, her movements, her voice, it all felt like time had folded in on itself. The next day, I asked Liam about Clara's family. "Has she ever introduced you to her parents?" He looked surprised. "Oh, no. She said her parents passed away when she was a teenager. Why?" "Did you ever see photos?" He shook his head. "No, but she said she doesn't like talking about them. Her childhood was rough." I nodded, pretending to understand, but my heart was sinking deeper into suspicion. Later that week, Clara announced she was going to visit a friend in town. After she left, I went into their room. I know it was wrong, but I had to know. I searched her drawers, her purse, even under the bed. Nothing unusual, until I checked her jewelry box. Inside was a small, folded paper, yellowed with age. When I opened it, my knees nearly gave out. It was an ultrasound photo. The name printed in faded ink at the bottom read, Elena Moore. My daughter's name. And the date? 1999. That was the year before Liam was born. I sat down on the edge of the bed, tears spilling down my face. How did Clara get this? There was only one copy. I had given it to Elena myself when she found out she was pregnant. I heard the front door open. My heart leapt in panic. I quickly put everything back and hurried out of the room. Clara walked in, holding groceries. She smiled politely, but there was something tight in her face. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," I lied. But she looked at me with those same eyes, Elena's eyes, and whispered, "You've been in my room." I froze. "Excuse me?" Her voice dropped lower. You shouldn't have touched my things. For a moment, her tone wasn't Clara's. It was older, sharper, filled with a sadness I recognized. My breath caught in my throat. Who are you? I whispered. She didn't answer. She just walked past me, her eyes glistening with tears. That night, Liam came home late. Clara had locked herself in their room, crying. He was furious when I told him we argued. Grandma, she's my wife. She's been nothing but kind to you. Please, stop accusing her of things. I wanted to tell him everything. The locket, the diary, the ultrasound. But how could I? It sounded insane. He'd think grief had finally broken me. So I stayed silent. Days passed in uneasy quiet. Clara avoided me, barely speaking except to say polite good mornings. But I could feel her watching me sometimes, like she knew I was close to uncovering something. Then, one afternoon, while watering the plants in the garden, I noticed something buried in the soil near the rose bush, something metallic glinting under the sunlight. I bent down and brushed the dirt away. It was another locket, identical to Elena's. I opened it. Inside was a photo of Clara standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. On the back, written in faint pencil, were the words, "For my mother, forgive me." I stared at those words until they blurred. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to her room. She was sitting by the window, the moonlight falling across her face. She looked tired, almost hollow. "Clara," I said softly, "please, just tell me the truth. Who are you?" Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw that same flicker of recognition again. The same look my daughter gave me when she was about to confess something she'd done wrong. Then Clara whispered, "If I tell you, you'll never look at me the same again." "Try me," I said, my voice trembling. She stood, walked slowly toward me, and placed her hand over mine. "I shouldn't exist," she said, her voice barely audible. "But I do." Before I could speak, she added, "You buried the wrong person." The room went silent. My world tilted, and the air left my lungs. The silence between us was heavy, thick like fog. I could hear my heartbeat thudding in my ears, each beat sharper than the last. Her words, "You buried the wrong person," echoed through me, twisting every piece of memory I'd held sacred for over 2 decades. I stared at her, unable to breathe. What do you mean?" I whispered. Clara's eyes glistened with tears, but her face stayed eerily calm. "The woman in that coffin wasn't Elena." My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the edge of the dresser to steady myself. "That's impossible," I said, shaking my head. "I saw her bracelet, her ring, her things were with her." She nodded slowly. "Yes, because someone made sure of that." "Who?" I demanded, my voice breaking. She looked away, her eyes distant, as if staring at a memory she wished she could erase. "The man she was running from." I felt my stomach twist. "You mean the man in her diary?" Clara nodded. "He found her the night of the accident, but the car that went off the bridge, it wasn't her driving." I gripped my rosary tighter, feeling my hand tremble. "Then who?" She took a deep breath. "A woman named Rosa, a nurse who helped her disappear." I couldn't comprehend it. Disappear? Why? "Because she thought Liam was in danger," Clara whispered. "She made it look like she died in that crash. The body they found was Rosa's. She had switched their belongings before leaving town." The world tilted around me. For years, I had mourned my daughter's death, I'd sat beside that grave every Sunday, talking to her, begging for her forgiveness, blaming myself. And now, standing in front of this young woman who wore her face, I didn't know what to feel: anger, relief, or madness. "But how do you know all this?" I asked weakly. "Who told you?" She hesitated, her lips trembling. Then she said it. "Because she told me herself." I blinked. "Who did?" "Elena," she whispered. "Your daughter." My vision blurred. "Stop it. Stop this nonsense." "I'm not lying," she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I met her when I was 16. She lived in a small town near the border under another name, Evelyn Hart. I didn't know who she really was until years later." I shook my head. My mind refused to believe. "No. Elena died. I buried her." "She survived, Mrs. Moore," Clara said softly. "But she was sick. She didn't have long." I stared at her, every breath burning. "Sick?" Clara nodded. "She had a heart condition, the same one I was born with." It hit me then, like lightning splitting the night. "Born with?" Clara's eyes met mine. "She was my mother." For a moment, the air left the room. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. "No," I whispered. "That's not possible." "She gave me up when I was a baby," Clara said. "She was terrified the man who hurt her would find us. She left me at a church orphanage with a note that just said, 'Her name is Clara. Please keep her safe.'" I shook my head again, my throat tightening. "No, Elena never had another child. Liam was her only one." "She didn't tell you," Clara whispered. "She couldn't. She thought it would put you in danger, too." My hands trembled so hard I dropped the rosary. It hit the floor with a small, cold sound. I stumbled backward, sinking into the chair. "I found her again when I was 16, Clara continued, her voice breaking. "She was living quietly in a little town by the coast. She told me everything, about you, about Liam, about the man who threatened her. She wanted to come home, but she said it was too late. She was dying." I pressed a trembling hand to my lips. Tears blurred my vision. "And then?" "She died in my arms," Clara said softly. "She made me promise to find you someday, to protect Liam, to tell you the truth only when it was safe." For a long time, I couldn't speak. The only sound was the faint ticking of the old wall clock and the rain outside beginning to fall again. Finally, I whispered, "Why now?" Clara's eyes softened. "Because the man who hurt her, he's dead. I saw it in the news last month. And when I met Liam at the university, I didn't plan for any of this. I didn't know he was my brother's son until after we got married." My heart stopped. "You married your—" She quickly shook her head. No, we're not related by blood. I'm her daughter from after Liam was born." She told me my father was someone else entirely. Please believe me." I felt dizzy. The world spun in and out of focus. I tried to process the words, but it was like trying to grasp smoke. "So you married your mother's son's son?" I murmured weakly. "Yes," she said tearfully. "I didn't know at first. I swear I didn't." I stared at her face, Elena's face, and in that moment, my heart broke and healed at the same time. She wasn't lying. Her pain was too raw, too human. I stood, slowly walking toward her. My old knees wobbled. I reached out and cupped her cheek. Her skin was warm, trembling. "You have her eyes," I whispered. "The same frightened eyes she had when she was 16. She began to cry, softly at first, then uncontrollably. I pulled her into my arms, and for the first time in years, I felt my daughter's presence again, not as a ghost, but as something living, breathing, carried through this child she left behind. After a while, when her sobs quieted, I asked, "Does Liam know any of this?" She shook her head. "No. I wanted to tell him, but how could I? He'd never forgive me." I sighed heavily. "Secrets have a way of destroying everything, Clara, just like they did back then." "I know," she whispered, "but I didn't want to lose him." "You already have," I said softly. We both stood there, holding on to the ghosts of the same woman, one who had loved too deeply and feared too much. Finally, I said, "Tomorrow, we'll tell him together." Her faces went pale. "He'll hate me." "Maybe," I said, "but lies buried always find their way to the surface, just like you did." Outside, thunder rumbled, deep and distant, as if the heavens themselves were listening. That night I sat by the window long after everyone had gone to bed. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and cold. I took out the old sketchbook again and turned to the page where Elena had written, "If you ever see me again, forgive me." Tears blurred the words, but I smiled through them. "I forgive you, my darling," I whispered, "for everything." But deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over yet. Tomorrow, when the truth came out, it might destroy everything we had left. Morning arrived, heavy and gray, as though the sky itself was holding its breath. The world outside my window looked washed and silent, glistening after last night's rain. But inside, my heart felt like a storm waiting to break. I didn't sleep at all. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, hearing Elena's voice whisper in my memory, "Don't let him hate her, Mama." Clara knocked gently on my door just after sunrise. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale. She'd been crying too. We didn't speak at first. There was nothing left to say. Only the truth was left now, and it terrified us both. "Is Liam awake?" I asked quietly. She nodded. "He's in the kitchen." I took her trembling hand and squeezed it. No more hiding. When we entered the kitchen, Liam was pouring coffee, humming softly to himself, completely unaware that his entire world was about to change. He looked up with that familiar boyish smile. "Morning, Grandma. Morning, love." He kissed Clara's cheek and handed her a mug. "You both look like you've seen a ghost." I swallowed hard. If only he knew how close to the truth that was. "Liam," I began, "we need to talk." He frowned, setting the mug down. "About what?" "About your wife," I said softly. He looked from me to Clara. "What's going on?" Clara's eyes filled again with tears. "Liam, there's something I should have told you before we got married." His expression darkened slightly. "You're scaring me. What is it?" "I didn't know who you were when we met," she said quickly. "I swear I didn't. But after we fell in love, I found out something about my mother." Liam frowned deeper. "Your mother?" "Yes," she whispered. "She was Elena Moore." Silence. Complete, cutting silence. Then Liam laughed softly, confused. "Wait, My grandmother's daughter, Elena? That's impossible. She died before I was even old enough to remember her. I saw the flicker of confusion turn into disbelief, then anger. No, I said, stepping forward. She didn't die that night, Liam. She survived. He turned to me sharply. What are you talking about? The woman they buried wasn't your mother, I said, my voice breaking. Someone else died in that crash. Elena disappeared to protect you. She had another daughter later, Clara. Liam's face drained of color. He stared at Clara like she was a stranger. You're saying you're my aunt? Clara's tears spilled. Half-sister, technically. Different father. He stepped back, shaking his head violently. No, this is insane. Grandma, what are you saying? You've lost it. I wish I had, I whispered. It would be easier than this truth. He turned to Clara, his voice trembling. Tell me she's lying. Clara tried to reach for him, but he flinched away. Liam, I didn't know. Not until after we got married. I swear on my life I didn't know. He stared at her, his breath ragged. And you thought you could just keep it secret? Pretend we're not... He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Liam, please, I said softly. Your mother wanted to protect you. She made terrible choices, yes, but she loved you more than her own life. Clara didn't mean to hurt you. But he wasn't listening. He ran his hand through his hair, pacing the kitchen. This is sick, he muttered. This is... God, Clara, how could you? I fell in love with you before I knew, she cried. You have to believe me. He slammed his hand on the table. Stop saying that. You should have told me the moment you found out. I was scared, she shouted back, her voice cracking. I didn't want to lose you. He looked at her with something between heartbreak and horror. Well, you lost me now. Clara collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I rushed to her side, pulling her into my arms, glaring at Liam through my own tears. Don't you dare speak to her like that. She didn't ask for this, Liam. None of us did. But Liam's pain was deeper than anger. I saw it in his eyes, the betrayal, the disbelief, the shattering of every truth he'd ever known. He turned and stormed out the front door, slamming it so hard that the old wall clock rattled on its hook. When the sound of his car faded down the road, Clara buried her face in her hands. I've destroyed everything. No, my dear, I whispered, holding her close. The truth only destroys what's false. It will hurt him, yes, but it will free him, too. Hours passed. Neither of us moved much. The house felt like it was holding its breath again. I kept glancing toward the door, praying Liam would come back, that he'd walk in and understand. But he didn't. When the sun began to set, Clara finally stood up. I need to go, she said weakly. Where? I asked. Anywhere but here, she whispered. He won't forgive me. Running won't help, I said. It never did for your mother. She gave me a broken smile. Maybe it's in our blood. I wanted to stop her, but I knew she needed space. She packed a small bag quietly, kissed my forehead, and whispered, Thank you for believing me. Then she walked out into the twilight. After she left, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the ghosts of my mistakes. I thought of Elena, how fear had made her hide, how love had made her lie, and how time had twisted everything she wanted to protect. Hours later, when the house was completely silent, headlights flashed through the window. A car door slammed outside. I hurried to the porch. It was Liam. His face was red, his eyes swollen, his whole body trembling. "Where is she?" he asked hoarsely. "She left," I said quietly. He looked past me into the dark, tears brimming. "I went to Mom's grave," he whispered. "I stood there and realized I've been talking to a stone that doesn't even belong to her." I felt tears burn my eyes. He turned to me. "Why didn't you tell me sooner, Grandma?" "Because I didn't know," I said softly. "I thought she was gone. I thought the pain was buried with her." He shook his head, then whispered, "She's still haunting us, isn't she?" "Not haunting," I said, placing a trembling hand on his cheek. "She's trying to heal us, even now." He looked down at his hands, silent for a long time. Then, in a cracked voice, he asked, "Do you think she forgave us?" "I think she never blamed us," I whispered. The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of rain again. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled softly. Liam finally said, "I need to find her, Clara, before she disappears too." I nodded through my tears. "Then go, my boy. And when you find her, don't ask for explanations. Just hold her and forgive." He turned, his face lit with pain and resolve, and ran toward his car. As the headlights disappeared into the night, I whispered into the empty air, "Elena, guide him. He deserves the truth and peace." And for the first time in years, I felt something warm brush against my shoulder, like a mother's gentle touch, or perhaps a daughter's goodbye. The night was endless. I sat by the window watching the rain return in thin silver sheets, listening to the distant hum of thunder and the hollow ticking of the clock. Every sound felt alive, like the house itself was holding its breath for the next chapter to begin. Liam had gone after Clara, and I prayed he'd find her before the truth buried them both again. It was nearly dawn when my phone rang. My hands shook as I answered. It was Liam. His voice was tight, breathless. "Grandma, I found her." "Where?" I gasped. "Down by the pier, the one near Brookside, where Mom's car went off the bridge." My heart dropped. "Oh, dear God, Liam, don't let her—" "She's okay," he said quickly. "But she's not herself. She said she remembered everything. She said she came here because of me, but there's something else, something she's hiding." "Bring her home," I whispered. "Please." He didn't answer right away. I heard the sound of waves, wind, and then his voice again, softer this time. "Grandma, there's something you should see. In her bag." "What?" He hesitated. "Old photographs. Of you, of Mom, even of the night of the accident. Someone took them. Someone who was there." I gripped the edge of the table. "Bring them. Now." An hour later, I heard the crunch of gravel outside. I rushed to the door before they could knock. Liam stood there, soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead. Clara stood beside him, pale, eyes distant like she'd seen ghosts. She walked past me quietly and went straight to the living room. Liam followed, holding a small, weathered envelope. "She said Mom gave her this before she died," he explained. Clara sank into the armchair, her hands trembling. "I didn't want to show you," she said softly. "But maybe you need to see it too." I sat opposite her, my eyes fixed on the envelope. She opened it carefully and slid out a stack of photographs. The first was of Elena, my Elena, sitting beside a car near the old bridge. She was thinner, older, her eyes haunted. The second photo made my stomach twist. It was of her standing with a man I didn't recognize. His face was shadowed, but his arm was around her shoulders, almost possessive. "That's him," Clara whispered. "The man she was running from. His name was Victor Hale." I remembered that name faintly from the news years ago. A corrupt businessman, later arrested for human trafficking and fraud. He'd vanished right after Elena's accident. "She told me," Clara continued, "that he was obsessed with her. She tried to leave him, but he said if she disappeared, he'd take Liam." The pieces started fitting together, cruelly, painfully. Clara flipped to the next photograph. It was the bridge, nighttime, blurred by rain. 2 cars were parked there. One was Elena's, the other, the man's. "Mom said he followed her that night," Clara whispered. "They fought. She ran. He tried to grab her. Rosa, the nurse who helped her, tried to stop him. The car skidded. They both went over." I felt sick. "So Elena escaped?" Clara nodded slowly. "Barely. She swam to shore. Rosa didn't." Liam's hands were clenched into fists. His voice was low. "So she let us believe she was dead. For 23 years. "She didn't do it to hurt you," Clara said softly. "She did it because she thought he'd come after you next." Liam's eyes glistened, fury and grief blending together. "She could have come back later. She could have told us." "She tried," Clara whispered. "But by the time she found me, she was dying. She thought it would be easier if everyone kept believing she was gone." I couldn't stop my tears. The truth was too heavy, too cruel. My daughter had lived in hiding, carrying guilt until her last breath. Liam paced the room, shaking his head. "And all this time I thought she abandoned us. I hated her for it." I rose and took his hand. "She never stopped loving you, my boy. She sacrificed her name to keep you safe." He looked at Clara, his expression softening just slightly. "And you're the last piece of her I have left." She looked up at him, her lips trembling. "Do you hate me?" He hesitated. "I don't know what I feel, but hatred isn't one of them." I saw something flicker in his eyes, confusion, longing, sorrow. He loved her, even now, despite everything. And that was the cruelest part. Love wasn't logical. It never was. For a while, no one spoke. The house was silent except for the rain whispering against the windows. Then Clara reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and glimmering. A locket. Not the one I'd found before, another one. "This was hers too," she said softly, placing it in my palm. "She told me to give it to you when I told you the truth." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a tiny folded piece of paper. My name was written on it. I unfolded it slowly. The ink had faded, but I could still read her handwriting. "Mama, if you're reading this, I'm gone for real this time. Please don't cry. I know I hurt you by disappearing, but it was the only way to keep Liam safe. If he grows up kind, brave, and good, then I did something right. And if one day he meets a girl named Clara, tell him I chose that name because it means light. She'll be his light when the world gets dark." My chest tightened. I couldn't hold back the sob that escaped me. Clara began crying too, her face buried in her hands. Liam turned away, his shoulders shaking. We sat there, 3 people bound by one woman's love and lies. sharing a silence that said more than words ever could. After a while, Liam walked to Clara and knelt in front of her. He lifted her chin gently. "You didn't destroy anything," he said softly. "You just uncovered what was already broken." Clara whispered, "What do we do now?" He gave a small, tired smile. "We start over. No more lies." She nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I can live with that." They held each other for a long moment, and I swear I felt a warmth spread through the room, a peace I hadn't felt in decades. Maybe it was just the morning sun breaking through the clouds. Or maybe it was her, my Elena, finally finding her way home. When Liam looked up at me, his eyes were red, but softer. "She'd want us to let go, wouldn't she?" I nodded. She'd want us to live. Outside, the rain stopped completely. The sky began to glow pale gold, the kind of light Elena always loved, quiet, forgiving. As I watched my grandson and the girl who carried my daughter's soul hold each other in that soft, new light, I whispered a prayer of thanks. But deep down, I knew there was still one secret left, something in those photographs that hadn't made sense yet. And when I picked them up later that night, alone in my room, I saw it. The reflection in the last photo, a blurred face in the car's side mirror, watching from the shadows. Victor Hale, alive. The moment I saw that reflection, my heart froze. The man in the photograph, his sharp jaw, the scar above his eyebrow, that chilling half-smile. There was no mistake. It was Victor Hale. But he was supposed to be dead. The newspapers said he'd died in prison 5 years ago. Yet the reflection looked recent, almost too clear, as if someone had taken that picture not long ago. I sat there in the dim light of my bedroom, my hands trembling. Every instinct told me to tear that photograph apart and forget it existed. But a mother's heart never forgets the scent of danger. Something about this wasn't over. The next morning, I didn't tell Liam or Clara what I'd found. They were finally speaking again, fragile but gentle, like two broken pieces trying to fit back together. I didn't want to shatter that piece just yet. But inside, my mind was a storm. Who took that picture? And if Victor Hale was alive, what did he want now? That afternoon, while Liam was fixing something in the shed, I went to Clara's room. Her bag was still on the floor from last night, opened it carefully, and found another envelope tucked inside. Smaller, newer, with my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. My pulse raced as I opened it. Inside was a note written in neat, deliberate letters. "You should have left the past buried. The dead don't stay dead when you dig them up." No signature. The words sent ice down my spine. I looked toward the window. Outside, the garden swayed in the wind, the roses trembling. Suddenly, I felt as if someone was watching. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt like footsteps. Every shadow felt alive. Around midnight, I got up to get water and froze. Through the living room window, I saw a figure standing by the gate, tall, still, watching. "Liam," I whispered sharply, but when I blinked, the figure was gone. By morning, I convinced myself it was my imagination, until I found muddy footprints leading up the porch. Liam was furious when I told him. "We're calling the police," he said. "Whoever it is, they're trespassing." Clara sat pale and silent. "He's back," she whispered. Liam turned to her sharply. "Who?" "Victor," she said. Her voice was faint, trembling. "I saw him once before, 2 years ago, outside my apartment. I thought I was imagining it. Liam's jaw tightened. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to drag you into this, she said. He ruined Mom's life. I didn't want him ruining ours. I felt the room grow cold around us. It was happening again. The same fear, the same shadow my daughter once lived under. That evening, Liam insisted on checking the property. He walked the perimeter with a flashlight, determined and restless. Clara stayed close to me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I could hear her breathing, fast, shallow. Then, around midnight, there was a sound. A car engine in the distance, then tires crunching gravel. I peered through the curtains. Headlights. A dark sedan stopped just beyond the gate. Stay inside, Liam said firmly, grabbing the old hunting rifle that belonged to his grandfather. But before he reached the door, a voice echoed from outside, deep, mocking. Mary Moore, the man called. It's been a long time. My blood ran cold. No one had called me by my full name in decades. Liam froze. Clara clutched my arm, shaking. The doorbell rang once, then again. Don't open it, I whispered. But Liam stepped forward, gripping the rifle. If it's him, I'm ending this tonight. He swung the door open, and there he was. Older, thinner, but unmistakably him. Victor Hale. His hair was gray now, his eyes colder than winter. He smiled like a man greeting old friends. You look just like her, he said to Liam. Elena. Liam raised the rifle, his voice shaking with fury. You destroyed her life. Victor chuckled. Destroyed? No. I gave her a choice. She just didn't like the cost. Clara stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. You made her run. You made her live like a ghost. Victor turned his gaze to her, and for the first time his smile faltered. Ah, the daughter. You survived too. You should have stayed dead, she spat. He smirked. Oh, Death and I have an understanding. We visit each other, but never stay too long. Liam took a step closer. Leave before I make you. But Victor's voice dropped, calm and chilling. You don't even know why she ran, do you? Liam hesitated. Victor's grin widened. Ask your grandmother. She knows part of it. The rest, your mother took to her grave. I felt my heart seize. Don't listen to him, Liam. He's a liar. Victor tilted his head. Am I? He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope, worn, creased, but familiar. This is what Elena gave me before she left. Her confession. Liam snatched it from his hand before I could stop him. He ripped it open, his eyes scanning the pages. His expression changed. Shock, disbelief, heartbreak. What does it say? I whispered. He looked up slowly. Mom. She didn't just run from him. She ran because she thought I wasn't hers. The room went silent. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. What? I breathed. She wrote that she believed Victor was my father, Liam said hoarsely. That she couldn't bear to raise me knowing that. My knees weakened. No, that can't be true. Your real father was Thomas. He adored her. Victor laughed softly. You see? Lies stacked upon lies. Poor Elena could never face the truth. Shut up, Liam roared, raising the rifle again. Clara rushed forward, grabbing his arm. Don't give him what he wants. For a moment, everything hung in stillness. The rain, the fear, the truth. Then Victor smirked, turned, and walked back into the shadows, vanishing as silently as he came. Liam stood trembling, the letter crumpled in his fist. "If this is true," he whispered, "then I've spent my whole life hating the wrong person." Clara wrapped her arms around him, crying softly. "She didn't write that to hurt you. She wrote it because she loved you too much to lie anymore." He buried his face in her shoulder. "I don't even know who I am anymore." I stepped forward, placing my hand on his back. "You are Elena's son. Nothing changes that. Blood means nothing if love raised you." He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face, and nodded slowly. By dawn, Victor was gone. The police found tire marks near the old road, but no trace of him. Maybe he vanished into the same darkness he came from. Maybe karma finally claimed him. Days later, we buried the letter beneath the oak tree in the garden, the same tree where Elena once played as a child. As the soil fell over it, I felt a strange peace settle in my chest. The past, at last, had been spoken. Liam and Clara stood hand in hand beside me. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew they wouldn't let fear shape it anymore. I looked up at the morning sky, soft, pink, and endless, and whispered, "It's over, my darling. Rest now." For the first time, I heard her voice clearly, not in dreams, not in echoes, but right beside me.